Today on the news, cast from the Middle East. Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi gives an interview and hints at further attacks against Israel. Rockets again fired from Syria into Israel. Welcome to the newscast. We told you here yesterday that Israel was on high alert after that massive barrage of some 500 rockets fired out of Gaza into Israel on Wednesday. And we mentioned the fact that Israel was also on the lookout for further rocket fire out of Syria, where Iranian proxies, like Hezbollah, have a strong presence, of course, along that Syria-Israel border. Well, it looks like Israel has had to shoot down more rockets in the past 24 hours, according to the IDF. Overnight from Thursday into Friday, 2 rockets were fired from Syria into Israel. They landed in an open field in the Golan Heights and caused no damage or injuries. But nonetheless, Israel responded with artillery fire targeting the source of those rockets in Syria. Now, thankfully, there were no casualties. But again, this comes on the heels of what we talked about yesterday, that massive rocket barrage out of Gaza, and now we are learning a little bit more about that. First of all, 1 Palestinian was killed by Israeli fire. According to Palestinian sources, we reported yesterday that 1 young boy was killed on the Israeli side. He was 7 years old. He was killed when a rocket slammed into his home. Thankfully, other members of his family were not hurt. But we learned today that 1 Palestinian teenager, 16 years old, was killed in Gaza. That's where this teenager was killed, according to Palestinian sources. Now, speaking of that, we want to get into a very important interview given by none other than Iran. President Ibrahim Raisi gave an interview to Al Jazeera, the Qatar-based. Iran will continue to support attacks against Israel. In particular, he cited Gaza and Lebanon. Of course, that is a reference to Gaza, the Gaza Strip, where Hamas says they will continue to fight Israel. Iran's most lethal proxy sits on Israel's northern border, armed to the teeth with some 150,000 rockets and missiles pointed at every inch of Israel. Here's what Raisi said. This is very important. He said, "We will support the Palestinian nation in any way we can, so that the Zionists entity feels that it is surrounded from all sides and breathes in an atmosphere of insecurity." So right away, folks, he mentions the word Zionist entity, and that tells you where his sympathies are. And of course, he is calling for a ring of fire all around Israel. If you look at a map right now, you could see that ring forming, whether it's Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, whether it's Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and Hamas in Gaza to the south, the Houthis in Yemen also to the south, and then, of course, those various militias in Syria. That ring is forming, and Raisi made that point very clear today in this interview. He wants Israel to feel insecure. In his mind, Israel does not have the right to exist, and he would like to see that Jewish state destroyed, replaced by what? A so-called Islamic Palestine. That's what the end goal is for the Iranian regime. So Raisi spoke about surrounding Israel with insecurity. He also spoke about Jerusalem. Now, remember, the Iranian regime considers all of Israel's holiest sites, places like Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Nazareth, Shiloh, the biblical heartland. They consider all of this occupied territory, including, of course, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Here is what Raisi had to say about Jerusalem. He said, "The Zionist entity has committed a great sin by occupying Quds, or Jerusalem. The resistance against the Zionist entity is a religious duty for Muslims all over the world until the liberation of..." Now, Quds is the Arabic word for Jerusalem. There you have it, from the mouth of the president of Iran. Again, this is very important. They consider all of these places, including Jerusalem, as occupied territory. It is their goal to occupy those places, to take over those places, in the view of the Iranian regime. He also said that Iran will continue to aid Hamas, Hezbollah, and other groups that are battling Israel, even if there is a nuclear deal, which seems increasingly unlikely right now with these talks in Vienna. But if there is a deal, Raisi says, we will continue to support those resisting the Zionist entity. He also said, if the Zionists commit any mistake, we will strongly respond. We do not back down in the face of threats. Folks, tough talk from the president of Iran. And yet many in the West, including here in the United States, are still pushing for that nuclear deal. Now, it seems like it's going nowhere, but you never know. Maybe they'll revive these talks. If they do, keep in mind, the Iranian regime is not going to change its spots. They're not going to alter their behavior. As we see on a daily basis, they continue to build up their nuclear program. And at the same time, as we saw last May, they continued to build up their ballistic missile program, not for peaceful purposes. You think launching 500 rockets into an area that has some of the holiest sites for the Jewish people? You think that's just a coincidence? No, it's not. It's all connected, and as I mentioned a minute ago, it's a ring of fire that the Iranian regime is creating around Israel. Just yesterday, we reported here on the newscast, and I mentioned it again tonight, that first, there was that massive rocket barrage from Gaza. Then later on Wednesday, a drone attack on an Israeli-owned oil tanker off the coast of Oman. Now, Iran claimed responsibility for that attack, saying that it was revenge for the killing of that Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps officer that we talked about earlier this week. So you see it coming from the north, you see it coming from the south, you see it coming from the sea. It is a ring of fire. And as I mentioned yesterday, it's not inconceivable that the Houthis may eventually get involved as well. Remember, they did declare 3 days of war this week against Israel. And remember, the Houthis are a proxy of the Iranian regime in Yemen. So it is not inconceivable that the Houthis could throw their hat in the ring as well and target Israel with ballistic missiles or perhaps even more drone attacks. So a very dangerous situation, folks. And we are watching it closely here on the newscast. And we are talking about it because you need to know what is happening in the world's most volatile and chaotic region. It affects all of us. It affects all of us. And we are keeping a very close eye on it. Hey, quick programming note before we go. If you have not subscribed to the channel, be sure to click the notification bell and subscribe so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Hey, we're coming to you every day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes on the weekends, depending on the news cycle. And we would love to have you here with us every day as subscribers. Hey, thanks so much for joining us here today on the World News Newscast. Until next time, God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload. Tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.